How to Forgive Yourself, Others, and God by Elliot Straub. 1. Be made wrong. 2. Make everyone hate you for it. 3. Join a cause. 'It does not have to be the right one. 4. Maim. 5. Observe sacrifice. 6. Learn about the past, yours, but also theirs. 7. Fall in love. 8. Know you were made for war. 9. Look what you've done. 'Oh, look what you've done. 'How could you? 10. You were made for war. You will die for love.
My name is Gus Kelsey, and this is Metamorphosis Defined. Metamorphosis is a natural order. Metamorphosis is uncharted territory. Metamorphosis is rebirth. Metamorphosis is inside and out. Metamorphosis means nothing lasts forever. Metamorphosis means adapt or die. Thank you for reading the zine with me. You can find Gus Kelsey at do_arts_ok on Instagram.
My name is Morgan Johnson. I am a senior at Columbia College Chicago, and today I'll be reading the first 4 pages of my comic May Killers, which will be releasing January 10th of 2025. Mom's been gone for 3 days. She didn't even say where she was going. That's not like her. I hope she's okay. Mom, where are you? Are you... Hello? Is this Ellis Hughes? This is Officer Martin. We found your mother. She's dead. What? We found her in an abandoned warehouse. No. Someone killed her. They killed my mom. She's dead. And I'm gonna find whoever killed her. Ugh. I had that dream again. Why did I have it today of all days? Alarm. First day of work. I shouldn't overthink it. It's probably first day jitters. I always have nightmares whenever a big change happens, but it's been a while since I had that dream. Maybe it's a sign? An open even. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. I put too much thought into these things. Besides, I start my new job today. I can't believe I have to serve people in this. And that's it. If you're interested in learning more about the comic, please follow me at Made Killers Official to receive more updates and fan art related to the comic. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.
Hi, I'm Van, and this is This I Know. To my mother, God is stagnant, an endless line across her life. Depicted in her prayers are the faithful lover, friend, and condemner. In the dead of night, he sleeps soundly by me, an image of none of these things. God is very small from where I stand. He lies within the warmth of my palms and the softness of my brow. He's woven between all structures, reflecting back the purest image of me. I'm not God in any sense, but a small part of him is mine. Jesus loves me as I am, and so do I. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm Cynthia E. Hannafin, and I'm really excited to moderate our discussion this evening about the state of the independent bookstore with our panelists, Tom Boeing from Inc., aka Indy Northern Kentucky, soon to be in a new space in Dayton, Kentucky, Shelley McClone Carrier from Lion's Tooth in Milwaukee, and Liz Mason from Quimby's bookstore in Chicago. All three of the independent bookstores represented on our panel carry zines, mini comics, and other self-published items. In addition to being a place for creators to sell their work and a destination for zine enthusiasts to discover new titles, these shops also serve as crucial hubs for the self-publishing community in their locales and beyond. Tom, Shelley, and Liz, we're thrilled to have you all with us today. To start off, could you each tell us a bit about your bookstore and the selection of zines, mini comics, and other self-published titles you carry? I'm going to go ahead and point to Tom first, just to go alphabetically, and then Shelley, and then Liz.
For sure. I apologize if my daughter she's fussy. She's very tired. Indy Northern Kentucky was kind of conceived because of all of the work that my partner and I had done with Cincinnati, which is a local zine fest here. We started that, and then we figured like we could have a zine fest every day if we were able to have a bookstore. So we were really grateful to some friends of ours that kind of offered to share a space with us. With the contacts and kind of friends that we had made running Cincinnati, we were able to get a lot of diverse kind of zines and comics and art books, poetry books, photography books, all that kind of stuff from local folks as well as other folks from other zine fests that we had met kind of around the Midwest. So we were really glad. I mean, we've got zines from a lot of local things to the Cincinnati area, but we have things sent to us from Australia and Madrid and all these things. So we're really excited to have things from our community, but also kind of try to expand everyone's palette by having zines and comics and stuff from everywhere.
I'm Shelley McClone Carrier. I'm part owner of Lion's Tooth Bookstore in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're a mission-based bookstore. Our mission is to support local artists, makers, zinesters, and have a space where we can have free and open to the public events. Like like you just heard, we have zines from all over the place too, specializing in Wisconsin-based, but we have zines from at least 2/3 of the other panelists at our store. And we just love to support local creatives or just creative people. I think one of my favorite things is after Zine Fest Milwaukee, which we're a part of the organizing team, I have a line out the door of people selling us zines, which is super rad.
My name is Liz Mason. I'm the manager here at Quimby's Bookstore in Chicago. We specialize in independently published and small press zines, comics, books, mini comics, chapbooks, that kind of thing. We also have zines from all over, but especially Chicago because that is just where we're based. So naturally, that's the people that can easily just walk in and drop off their zines and their comics and their books. I do also enjoy when the mail comes in every day. It's like Christmas every day, but year round. Because we have our consignment form on our website, people can print out the consignment form and send it with 5 copies of their zine. And so we never know what's coming unless there's restocks, and then that's a different discussion that we have with each of our consigners.
Thank you all so much. Tom, I love how you describe your shop as having a zine fest every day. And Shelley, that line out the door after the fest absolutely resonates with me too as a zine maker. And full disclosure to those of you watching, I worked full-time at Quimby's for 3 years. So what Liz is describing in terms of Quimby's experiencing Christmas every day with packaging coming in is very familiar to me too. It's very clear, as Shelley pointed out, that all of you run businesses that are mission-driven as well as retail establishments. Could you each talk a little bit about how your shop supports the self-publishing community beyond its role as a retailer of zines and mini comics and other items?
Yeah, so with Ink, one of our big things, you know, my partner and I, we still work full time. So we're kind of just running the bookstore as like a labor of love. And kind of the thing for us is that we want to open this community up to as many people as, you know, want to be a part of it. You know, our whole thing is that like everybody has a voice. They can choose to use it making any kind of art that they want. And because zines are so diverse and everything, it's really a great medium for so many folks. So kind of the way we have done things is we have a monthly comics night that is for comics creators, people that just enjoy reading comics. We'll do local readings. We have had great cartoonists and authors from Columbus, Ohio, like Emmy Guinness and MS Harkness, and then also Hyena Hell is also, she's from Central Kentucky, so it's just like an hour north. So we're probably the closest destination for her. Sorry. So we've had them in the store quite a bit, and it's always a great time. So really just trying to get folks exposed to the community, since Cincinnati is not quite as big of a zine destination as other cities. But you know, we really try to help people feel included and connected to whatever kind of art they want to make. And one of the things, what we're so excited for in our new space, we will have room for folks to actually make their own and print their own zines in the shop. So kind of taking that, you know, another step forward as trying to be as inclusive as possible by having folks be able to do it right there. You know, so we're really excited about that.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's sort of the dream in some ways, is to be able to have a publisher's resource center as well as a shop. Liz, would you like to talk a little bit about how Quimby supports the community?
Sure. Well, also full disclosure for everyone watching, Cynthia is also the producer of Zine Club Chicago, which just celebrated 6 years at Quimby's. Woo, woo. In addition to Quimby's turning 33. So Cynthia as producer of Zine Club Chicago, which is a monthly meetup that changes form depending on the meeting, is a way that we participate with events that serve the independent publishing community. We also encourage a lot of art collaborations with some of the folks that sell their work here. If we find an artist that we really like, we'll ask them to make stickers for us or design a t-shirt or make a bookmark. We do like collaborating with artists and they don't necessarily have to be local either, people from all over. There also is a sort of vibe that gets created here that inspires employees to start things. Chicago Zine Fest was co-founded by an employee, Neil Brideau, that worked here. Or Cake, Chicago Alternative Comics Expo, a couple of the founders, Neil and Edie Fake, they were co-founders of, and that's one of the best alternative comics expos in the country. And we also like to hype a lot of the work that we sell here, both local and otherwise, because we do a weekly live stream on Saturdays where we talk about a lot of the new stuff that comes in, and we like to, yes, we're telling people about the new stuff we have here, but we also like to give a shout out to creators that might not necessarily get that much hype somewhere else that we're really excited about. We also table at a lot of offsite events as a form of outreach, which inspires people to, they see the type of work that we sell, they want to come into the store, then they come into the store, they get inspired to make zines, even though they might be new to it. And finally, because we are open to the public and we're a store, an inspiring store, people come into the store and meet other people when they're here, whether it's just shopping in the store, consigners dropping off their work, or an event, some kind of meetup, a reading, a performance. A lot of times there'll be two different consigners who don't know each other, and they're bringing in their work, and I'll introduce them. I'll be like, class of September 2024, you two need to know each other. And I joke that we're like, the independent publishing trading post of Chicago.
Absolutely. At Zine events I've been at Quimby's and other places, I think that potential for connecting with other people that are into what you are into as an enthusiast, as a collaborator, and just being inspired by what other folks are doing is really important. Shelley, I'd love to hear about some of the things that Lion's Tooth has been doing. I know you all just announced a really big online event coming up.
Oh, yes. So we have a lot of events at the store. One of our favorite things this year is we've been doing a Love and Rockets book club. So once a month we meet in the store and talk about, we switch back from Jaime to Gilbert, and it's been so much fun. And we are going to be doing a Zoom with them at the end of this month, which is super exciting, where the book club members, it's open to everybody, so anybody can log on, but the book club members are the ones that are going to ask questions. Another thing that is pretty rad that we do, my co-owner Chris started the Dandelion Residency, where once a year we do comics residence. You have to be in the Milwaukee area because we meet once a month, give critiques, help people streamline their comic. We have 3 jurors, one that's from a bookstore, like Liz was our juror the first year, 1 seller, 1 publisher, and 1 comic as jurors to pick the person that's going to be our resident. And then at the end of it, they produce a comic scene. and we throw a big party, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun. But yeah, we like to engage with the community as much as we can, doing tabling outside of, letting people come to us, letting people table inside. We also host, there's a local author that uses our space when we close on Wednesday night to have a writers club every Wednesday. So those are some of the fun community-based things we do.
That's awesome. I think that one of the things that independent bookstores, especially those like yours that carry small press and self-published items, can offer to folks is that access to some of the creators they love, whether they're big names like the Hernandez brothers or an up-and-coming zinester that might lead a workshop. Now Liz mentioned a little bit about Quimby's and its consignment policies and how it handles selling people's work. And of course, the heart of what you all do is making zines and mini comics and other self-published items available for people to walk in and buy. Now, and each store uses its own different model for that. There's not really a template like there might be for a big chain bookstore. Could you each share a little bit about how your shop handles getting those self-published items onto the shelves for people to buy?
I can start. So the difference, if you're watching and you don't know the difference between what consignment and wholesale is, just a quick overview. Wholesale is how a lot of stores buy stuff. They just buy something outright and they have already lost money before it gets out on the floor, and that's why they have to do the hard sell. Whereas consignment, you wait until after the stuff sells and then you pay the person who consigned the work, which is often the person who published it. They get a percentage of their retail price once it sells. And the way that we split up the percentages, once it sells, we get 40% of that retail price and the consignor gets 60%. And the reason we do a 60-40 split is because that vaguely mimics the book industry. Like when we do buy stuff upfront from like a bigger book distributor or publisher, like we'll get roughly that discount, although it is usually in the consignor model that we use, it kind of favors, the consignor kind of gets a better deal out of it. And it really, what is really nice about it is even though it is front loaded with a lot of paperwork and bureaucratic red tape and labor of having to track what's sold and what has been paid for, it's a lot of labor, but it allows you to sell the stuff that you do because you haven't lost money on it before it reaches the floor. But you just have to make sure that you are on it with making sure that you do the paperwork correctly. And that's and a lot of stores don't want to deal with that, and I don't blame them.
Absolutely. I know consignment is I know firsthand, very labor intensive process, but absolutely is one of the models that allows shops like Quimby's to have a lot of interesting stuff on the floor. Does Lion's Tooth or Ink use consignment at all, or is it mostly a wholesale buy up front kind of process?
When we opened up, we've only been open for 3.5 years. When we opened up, we bought straight out to kind of build our library, but pretty quick, about a year ago, we changed to consignment because like Liz said, like it's not affordable. Like we can't afford to buy zines from everybody straight out anymore. And the paperwork is a lot. Like I did inventory on all of our zines 2 days ago and it took me like 6 hours. So, the work is a lot, but we're able to carry a lot more, and it's easier to just say yes than we can't afford it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Ink's only been around for a year and a half-ish. So we do a ton of consignment. If we have consigners or artists that are, they sell out, depending on how quickly it sells out or something like that, we might give them like a wholesale option and be like, listen, your stuff sells very well. you're a great artist, appreciate working with you, you're easy to work with, happy to just, buy them outright and that sort of stuff. So that happens every once in a while. But when we first opened, we did a very similar thing as Shelley. I mean, you don't want to have a store with nothing on the shelves, right? So you just have to fill things up. And even still, we're trying to, our zines and our alternative comics and even our self-published or small press novels are in a really great place. But as far as like poetry books or kind of more, I guess, niche inside the niche, like just photography books, things like that, our library, our catalog, whatever, is not great, or it's not in a place where I would want it to be. As far as how many different offerings we have. So in some of those cases, I'll be like, listen, we need more, like people come in here asking for poetry, and I feel awful when I'm like, really, we only have these two books, like, so I like to try to get more of that in the store as much as we can, or whatever kind of genre or type of book people are looking for. So we're still working on building some things up, but we're a baby, we're only a year and a half. So
Absolutely. I love that we have sort of the range of uh, time of zine shops being around here, from Quimby's at 33 years to Line's Tooth has been around about 4 or 5 years,
Almost 4.
almost 4, and then new shop in Northern Kentucky. One of the things I was thinking about as y'all talked, and especially looking a little bit at what's behind Liz right now, because I know you're at Quimby's. A lot of folks watching this, um, because it'll be online, or joining in from all over the place and may not have visited your shops yet. Could you each talk a little bit about the physical space that your shop is in, and the environment that people walk into when they come in the front door of the store? And maybe I'll go ahead and point to Tom first, just because Liz and I have been in your space.
yeah,
And your original space had a really interesting setup, and I know y'all are moving right
yeah.
now to a brand new location.
Yeah, so our current location, which closes the weekend of Chicago Zine Fest. So I will be in Chicago at the final weekend, because I'm coming to party with y'all. So
Next week.
I know, I'm so excited. Um, I can't wait. I mean, I went to college up there, so it just like is coming back to visit friends and do all this kind of stuff. So I'm really excited about it. But our current space, we share with a plant and flower shop right now. And so, um, there are plants and flowers and bouquets and vases and pots and all of these beautiful things. And then you have, all of these beautiful zines and books and so many colors, and it smells amazing because the flowers just smell amazing. Um, so you don't necessarily get that kind of like old bookstore smell when you walk in. It's a really fresh, kind of colorful, vibrant sort of space. Um, and so we've been really lucky to be in that space. So kind of probably by the time that folks would be able to come visit our store, we won't be there anymore. Our new space is literally just down the road, like 3 minutes. And it's in this really, really beautiful, like 120-year-old building. We've got like originally they were two separate storefronts, but now they're just ours. And the room where you enter will be, because it isn't yet, will be kind of the main bookstore sort of space. That's where a lot of our shelves, our zines, our comics, books, magazines, everything is going to be in there. And then the second room will be kind of set up with some comfy chairs and stuff toward the front. And there's like a little stage so that when we do readings or presentations or something like that, we have a designated space for it. In the flower shop, we've kind of just like had to make a space, which has been great. I have no complaints. Sharing the space with the flower shop has been incredible. But we'll have a designated space for that sort of stuff. And then in that same room toward the back will be kind of the work area with some work tables, some drawing tables, lights, some supplies, and if we can get one relatively soon for the right price, a giant, photocopier and everything that everybody will be able to use. So we're still working on it. We don't even have like an opening date yet set for the new space. But it'll be sometime in November. So soon. I mean, it feels like we just signed the lease the other day and it's already been like a month and a half. So things are just, time flies.
Well, that sounds amazing. So you will be renting the new space. Shelley, I know you and Chris own the space where Lion's Tooth is in. Could you tell us a little bit about the environment there?
So we were lucky enough to purchase the building that we're in. It was right before prices skyrocketed during the pandemic. So we got it for a steal. It was a really very good deal. I'm not going to say how much we bought it for, but so it's a small space. It was a barber shop originally, or it was a corner store originally, but most of its life it was a barber shop. So you walk into this faux stone staircase with sparkles in it, and I have 2 jerky cats at home and I love plants. There's a built-in planter on one side, so you're greeted by geraniums falling on your head as you walk in the door. So I was able to plant a bunch of plants, and the whole front is a big window, so it's open because it's a pretty tight space. It's about 750 square feet. So really small, but the open window makes it look a lot bigger. So I filled it with as many plants as I could. We also wanted, and then you walk up the steps, and we had these shelves built into the wall where we carry all of our zines. So that's pretty much the first thing you see when you walk in the door after you get rained on by geranium petals. And we also wanted a space where people spent time, where they hung out. So we got a beer and wine license. So we have a bar that we sell beer, wine, coffee, tea, soda. And our bar, we purposely kept the face of it unfinished so that we could pay the artist Piccoli from San Francisco, who did our logo. We paid her to hand paint the bar, so it has these beautiful black and white flowers on the bar. It's just we just really wanted a space that sparked creativity and fun. You're probably blasted by like punk rock, hardcore, indie rock, whatever, some kind of alternative loud music. I'm really into MJ Lenderman right now, so you might hear that when you walk in the door, but we just wanted a space that was fun and comfortable.
Absolutely, it is when you walk in. As a former Milwaukeean, there just isn't anything more Milwaukee than a bookstore with a bar in it. I love it. And Liz, again, I feel very biased saying this, but Quimby's is sort of the zine shop mothership. Tell the folks who may not have visited yet what they can expect when they walk in.
Sure. Well, everything I'm about to tell you is, if you look at this YouTube channel that you are watching right now, the Chicago Zine Fest YouTube channel, if you go back to 2020, there is a tour that I did of Quimby. So everything I'm about to tell you, if you want to see it like a virtual experience, you can go back and watch that. But general overview is, you walk in the store, and because logistically it was impossible for us to put all the zines in one place and all the comics in one place, things are kind of spread out because we are limited by the fact that the walls are brick that is porous and kind of in a constant state of erosion. So it's constantly like aspirating water through the holes and like pushing the brick out onto the floor. So there's certain areas where it's like, we can't shelve anything here. This is the weeping wall. So I'm really doing a great sales job on what it's like when you walk in here. But we do have an area where the new comics and zines go. And then, of course, we have various sections for the different books and things as well. But there are also some specialty sections in the store, like LGBTQIA has an area, Politics and Revolution, BIPOC has a highlight. We have a DIY zine section. Of course, the DIY books are kind of in there, and that's also like health stuff as well. And then we have some prolific artists who have their own sort of highlight sections, people like Heather Anaker, Half Letter Press, Mark Fisher, Billy McCall, the women who publish Girls on Film. Like a lot of these prolific consigners have their own highlight sections. We also have an area that is specifically for zines and comics published in Chicago and the surrounding areas. And I often joke, everything that's in this section is local, but not everything that's in the store that is local is in this section. It's like a logic exercise. We do also have some racks devoted to mini comics anthologies. And when I say mini comics, I mean like the zines of the comics world. So anthological based ones with multiple contributors, they have their own section. Chapbooks, so like the zines of the poetry world, that has their own section. Of course, I can't leave out the fact that we do have a highlight section for Zine Club Chicago, so people who come to Zine Club a lot or whose zines we talk about or have gotten talked about. That is a highlight section. And then, of course, we have a whole comics wall split into size. So slightly oversized, slightly not oversized, and tiny, tiny. And then, of course, we have a music zine section. Like this just goes on forever and ever. And things sort of evolve over time. If a section seems like, oh, this particular format seems really popular right now, let's give it a section, then I'll create a tag for it in the computer, and we'll have a section for that on the wall. And then if something seems like it's, things wax and wane, certain trends in the zine world. So if something seems like, wow, we're not really getting a lot of zines about, cats and pizza and intersectional feminism, like, well, maybe we'll like narrow that one down for a little bit, So it kind of, I will often say, it does feel like a little bit of chaos in here if you've never been in here, but like in a really good way.
I think that's a perfect way to describe it. And having been to all of your shops and really excited to see Ink's new space, I would encourage everyone watching this, if you haven't been to these 3 shops already, make it part of your local travel or a destination. Now, most independent bookstores operate on very tight margins in a landscape that's now dominated by large corporate retailers. And, I can only imagine carrying zines, mini comics, and self-published items that don't have a huge margin of profit make that even more the case for your 3 stores. What's the biggest business challenge that each of your shops currently faces?
Sorry. We were new and we were working on pure adrenaline the first 3 years and going deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. So we just had to pivot a little bit because the margins are so low that we are closing 2 days a week during the slow times because we both had to get part-time jobs to help pay the bills so that we can keep our house and the store open. So paying somebody to work the store all day when it only makes $20 doesn't make sense. So we're trying to biff it because we love what we do and we want to continue doing it.
Understandable. How about you, Tom?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, my partner and I still work full time as like other jobs. My partner is a nurse at the NICU at the University of Cincinnati. We have 2 daughters. And my job, fortunately, is remote, 100%. So, staffing wise, like it's really just us, you know. So the girls, our little girls, are there sometimes, you know. They just kind of get to grow up in a creative space. But I think because we are still so new, and we, you know, still have some growing to do. Obviously, a huge step forward is this new space for us. Um, I think that, you know, we are happy if the store can just pay for itself. Like, I'm not taking a paycheck. My partner's not taking a paycheck. Like, we don't have employees. We're not, you know, it's really just, you know, something that we love, we're passionate about. We want other people to kind of develop that love for it too. Um, and since we started it, like, our whole thing is like, well, we could last for 2 months or we'll last for 2 years, you know? And like, that's it. I would rather do it and have it not work out than like have gotten old and been like, man, I wish we would have opened that store, you know? So, you know, as long as all the bills are paid, we're okay for now. Obviously, we would like to get bigger and expand and you know, be able to do more with it. But a year and a half in, just if we can pay all the bills, we're happy.
How about Quimby's?
I would say for us, the business challenges are always financial. I mean, everyone knows there's not a lot of money to be made in zines, but that's not what pays the bills. What pays the bills is the books. Another business challenge is staffing, just making sure that everybody can be here when we need to be open. And then, like Lion's Tooth, we are also closed 2 days a week because a lot of that was because if it came to everybody got sick and I had to run this myself, then I needed to be able to take a weekend. But it couldn't be on Saturdays and Sundays because that's when the rest of the world wants to shop. So we then, once the things opened back up, and since then we have stayed closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I am here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. My days off are days that we have part-timers here. But I will admit that being closed those 2 days and being here allows me to get to things that are more of a challenge for me to get to during the week that I have to, things that require some kind of brain power that's hard to do at the same time as running a store or, you know, running an open store, you know, like finances or whatever. And that has been, those 2 days a week that we're closed is actually really helpful, but it does create a weird vibe, people standing outside having a moment of cognitive dissonance because they haven't looked at the hours and they see someone in here and they see the lights on and they're doing a lot of like banging on the door and then going back and reading the thing, but not really reading the thing. And it's like don't make eye contact with the people at the door. It's like making eye contact with an animal, like whatever. Like just no one's there. Like keep it like that's weird. It's a weird vibe, you know. So that's a challenge. But honestly, like all small businesses, the biggest challenge really is always finances.
That's understandable. And I kind of feel for the people at the door sometimes. We just want the zine shop to be open when we want it to be open, right? But obviously, you know, all of your shops are run by human beings, and the shops and all of you individually face a lot of challenges in keeping those doors open for folks. I know Tom had mentioned earlier that your work is a labor of love, and that's very clear from all three of you. I wanted to ask, what is the very best part of your job, and what's the most difficult part in terms of owning or managing an independent bookstore?
I have a good answer.
Oh, go, then you go.
Because it's the same positive and negative.
Ooh.
The people in the things. And by people, I mean, I love our customers. They're awesome. But any customer service job, any service industry job comes with its own string of challenges. And we are on a major thoroughfare in a major neighborhood. And and so, and I know, and actually both of the other stores I know are on kind of main streets. And so, there are things that you deal with when you're in kind of a major metropolis on a major thoroughfare that anybody whether you've bartended, whether you've been a barista, whether any job that you've done that deals with the public, like dealing with the public is awesome because our customers and our consigners are awesome. And we are I joke, we're the tourist destination for cool people, but, but also like, it has all of its challenges. And at the same time, the stuff that we get in is awesome. I haven't necessarily read everything that's here. I don't necessarily love everything that comes in because a lot of it's unsolicited. Or even if it's something that I have ordered, it may be something that I personally am not into, but I know our customers are. But, by and large, like a lot of the stuff that we sell is the stuff that I'm into, and that's why I work here. But there is so much of it. It is a lot. And being able to constantly deal with the onslaught of both the consignment stuff and the stuff that I have to reorder or place front list order. That front list means that you order it a season in advance of new stuff. Staying on top of all of that is such a challenge. There's just not enough hours in the day to get to dealing with all of the merchandising, ordering, and processing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, the working a 9 to 5, having 2 small children, trying to have, a life with my spouse and kind of be at home, but also like nurturing this other little baby that we have, and all of the work that requires. It's not a light load, especially if when you can't afford to have like a full team of people to do it, and it's pretty much like just you and another person. It's a lot of work, and like I love it because the art we get is incredible. The people we get to meet are amazing, but it's a lot sometimes.
I'm going to start with two of my favorite things about running this store. First is I read a lot. I love reading. And one of my, I love reading outside of my comfort zone as well, like picking up ARCs, which are like pre-readers, like before it's published. We'll get books sent to us from publishers. Like I just finished Miranda July's All Fours, which I don't think I would have picked up on my own, and I absolutely loved it. So it's fun to get out of that comfort zone of my reading habits. The second thing, which I think is the thing I love the most, is when a kid comes in that made a comic and I can buy their comic off of them for like $2, like just like they get so excited that they have their comic in a store and they're like 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's just kind of like fun to like be a part of supporting that creativity that's going to last a lifetime. Joking, not joking, my least favorite thing is when somebody comes into the store and cracks a spine on every single book and doesn't buy anything.
Oh,
We all
Really
gather.
nothing.
put their wet drink on it.
I feel like that's one of the dangerous things, I think, with having, a bar in the shop is, oh my God, you gotta make sure nobody spills anything or uses a book as a coaster. Oh my gosh.
Does that happen often, Shelley?
When we have an event, we take down like our center display table, so not as much, but the floor will be sticky. There's been a few. Okay.
There's always some liquid explosion that happens, I feel like, on a busy Saturday or whatever. Now I know this is maybe an impossible to answer question, but I am wondering, what do you each think the future is going to look like for your shop and other independent bookstores, especially the ones that carry the work of self-publishers?
I will answer. I think we're pretty optimistic, I think, for our shop, personally, just because we're able to move into this new space, with being able to hold more author and art events at the space. That'll be really great. We'll be able to bring more people in, and then with our kind of makers station in the back, hopefully, um, we'll give people not only, the inspiration to work on their stuff, but also a space to do it, the tools to do it. And we the one thing that I would love, for our specific community in the northern Kentucky Cincinnati area is just kind of have the community grow a little bit. Since we started Cincinnati, and had our first event, we've seen each event get larger and larger and larger, and more local, artists and exhibitors, apply every single year. And so it's really great to see, the the need or the want or the passion for this community grow, over the last few years. And so that's the one thing that we want, personally, for our business. Um, and I would love to think that that would apply to kind of all small press bookstores. I think that, with kind of like the rise of AI and, AI art and all that kind of stuff, maybe the folks have, and it's been happening for a couple of years, I guess, but folks, I think are starting to lean more, like the pendulum swinging the other way, and folks are like, I want to hold it, I want to have it, I want to collect it, I want the thing. And because, the small press bookstores offer such unique items that you're not going to be able to get at just, whatever big name bookstore, or online retailer bookstore. I think we give people an opportunity to kind of explore, um, their tastes, explore new works, explore, things that you're never going to see anywhere else.
Shelley, would you like to jump in next?
Sure. So, like Chris and I grew up kind of in that DIY, do it yourself punk scene where we saw the need, like not being able to get some of these small presses from the library, like a lot of books I would want to read and I couldn't find them anywhere, or comics, you couldn't find them anywhere. So we saw the need and we filled it. Um, we're going through some rough times right now, but I am hopeful that, like zines were like a huge part of growing up for me, going to shows and everybody had their zine that they handed to you, or you made a zine about this and that. And it's super fun to see the excitement again, like over the last, what is like 10 years, like it's fun to see it again. And I think it's only going to get bigger and better. And we're learning a lot, like it's that 3-4 year old, where we didn't know what we were doing, and now we kind of know, but we still have a lot of things to figure out. So I'm hopeful.
How about Quimby, Liz?
I'm waiting for the weird new type of printing. Like, this thing is printed on shoelaces, gum, and leaves. I'm waiting for that weird new development with ink made from like carrots and blueberries or something. I'm just always curious to see what the new materials that are going to be, or like what weird new binding method is going to be. you know, the thing. It does seem, what is very amusing to me, I sort of love this, is this sort of reemergence of music zines seems to really have kind of popped up again, which is super fun. And a lot of them are, zines tend to be, generally speaking, a youth culture. And so, and I mean, not everybody that makes zines is below a certain age, but it tends to be kind of common. And it also tends to be true that a lot of people, as they get a little bit older, sometimes they leave zines because other things in their life, they are giving a necessary priority to, family, or payments for things, or for a house, or for, whatever. And I am sometimes seeing some of the older folks who made zines a long time ago return to making zines. But I'm also seeing that the music zines that are coming out are mostly young folks, like in their 20s or younger. And now that I have spent most of my adult life at this store, I am seeing two phenomenons. One is younger folks make the things and then they age, and then maybe they exit it, but then other folks that have kind of already aged then kind of returning to making zines, which is sort of beautiful. And also people who made zines, they might stay in the zine world, but not necessarily in a publishing way. What happens is they become archivists, librarians, and teachers, and they then teach their students zine making, and then their students come and bring their work here. And then a lot of those kids are art school kids too. So then they have access to really cool, weird printing technology and can bring stuff in. Totally got us off topic. Sorry.
No, I love that. I love what each of you have had to say about not just the future of your shops, but the future of zines and the zine community. And as Shelley mentioned, it sounds like there's a lot to be excited about and a lot to be hopeful for, despite all of the challenges that y'all navigate every single day. I do have a final question for you all. In addition to shopping in your establishments, how can people best support your shop and its mission to bolster self-publishers?
Well, they could bring me snacks.
And it's like, how have we not mentioned snacks yet tonight? Yeah.
Coffee.
I'd say our shop is right across the street from a brewery. That's great. Just I'll share the growler with you. That sounds great.
I'm gonna say, like, we have so many people come into our store who said that somebody at Quimby's told them about us, like sharing the love, like we're not competitors, we're in this together, like sharing posts, giving shout outs, like social media is so hard because I never see anything on social media anymore, so I don't even know what, but just kind of sharing that knowledge, like I had somebody come in a few months ago, like, oh, I love your store. There's nothing like it. I'm like, yeah, there is. Quimby's. It's right down the street. I mean, go. So I think it's just, we're all here to help people too. And I think we got so much help from you all that we're so incredibly grateful for, and sharing that with new people. Like we get people come up and ask us, how do you do it? And it's just like, what do you want to know? Let's go get a tiki drink and we'll give it all to you.
Also bookshop.org. So if because we're a member of the American Booksellers Association, the ABA, we have our store listed at bookshop.org for, like, if you want to order a book, maybe it's something that we don't necessarily carry, but you want us to sort of get the kickback. You select us as the store that is the recipient of the small profit that gets made. And so, and you can also, they sell a lot of stuff that aren't even necessarily books, but are like book adjacent, tote bags, art supplies, that kind of, some of that kind of stuff. And what that does is, because 9 times out of 10, when someone places a special order with us, if it's something that we order and then alert them when they get it in the store, 9 times out of 10, they actually don't come pick it up, and then we get stranded with this special order. So, but if I can send them a link and say like, hey, if you order it for bookshop.org, you can get it directly from this warehouse or this distributor right to your door as if you were ordering from some big box website. And just tell them that we're the bookstore that has sent you there. That's a great way to get people to support you, but also to get stuff that you might be a little reticent to order for them, that they would be less likely to come into the store and buy, but they want it in the moment. And if you can guide them to that, that's actually a great way to support a bookstore. So like, also like sometimes like if I want to buy a gift for somebody out of state and I want them to have it, but I don't want to deal with the shipping, that is also a great way to support the store.
Absolutely. I feel that these are all really good examples of not just how to support independent bookstores like all of yours, but gets to the heart of something really foundational about the self-publishing community, is that we're all really supportive of each other. And I will personally mention one last thing. As a zine maker who will never get tired of the thrill of seeing my work on the shelves of the stores that I love, I would encourage anyone watching this who's a creator, send your work in or bring it in to Quimby's Lines, Tooth, and Ink. Yeah, like I said, seeing your work up on that shelf, or maybe even seeing someone pick it up and look through it or buy it, is just a unique thrill. I want to thank you all so much for your really thoughtful insights today, and also thank you all so much for your work to make sure that self-published items have a home in independent bookstores. I feel that that's really important to a lot of us out there who make things and are enthusiasts of things that other people make. I'd also like to thank Chicago Zine Fest for hosting this discussion, and all of you who tuned in tonight. Hopefully we'll see you at Chicago Zine Fest or at Quimby's Lines, Tooth, and Ink someday soon. Good night, y'all.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. Welcome, viewers. Welcome to our wonderful panelists. Thank you for joining us. We are on this panel titled Zines as Resistance for the Chicago Zine Fest 2024. I'm super excited to be here. I am going to introduce myself real quick before I read the bios for our panelists. My name is Melissa Mersch Rodriguez. I founded and run a zine called Moody out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is a zine hoping to platform queer and or BIPOC creatives of all sorts. Started with a lot of visual art and poetry, but we've catapulted to video artists, musicians, even cooks, and everyone in the issues is paid for their contributions, which is a really big part of Moody, and it's really sort of became a platform, not just a zine, in a lot of ways as well. Recently, we've focused a lot on zine history as well in free takeaways in some different versions. So not only having to sell issues in order to give income to the contributors, but also be able to share information, which is a big part of zines, which we will be talking about a lot on this panel. We are joined by LaDeja Bryant, she, her, who is a recent grad from the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design and currently a K through 8th art teacher in Milwaukee. Her creative journey converges graphic design, fine art, and curation with a focus on community and meaningful change through the arts. She is the force behind Braided Magazine. More than a platform, it is her commitment to amplifying BIPOC creativity and fostering accessibility to art in our communities. For her, design is a means to craft safe spaces, especially for BIPOC individuals, where their stories can thrive daily. Thank you for joining us, LaDeja. We also have Noah Paulo Teague, he, him, who is a Chicago-based designer and artist whose creative journey intertwines familial heritage with a diverse artistic education. Currently pursuing communication design at the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. His early exposure to the design industry through his father laid the foundation for a lifelong passion. With a commitment to collaboration, cultural inclusivity, and sustainability, he endeavors to address societal challenges, particularly in underserved communities, infusing every project with purpose and social consciousness. Thank you for being here as well, Noah. And we have Jeremy Hammond, he, him, who is a member of Midwest Books for Prisoners, a formerly incarcerated political prisoner, and an anarchist printer. And then joining us asynchronously from behind bars, we have Hibachi Lamar, he, him, who is an organizer with the Black Autonomy Federation and author of several books and zines, such as The Depraved and Deprived and The Ghetto Bred Anarchist. He is an anarchist motivated by our ability to develop as individuals and as a society, and who understands that an anarchist revolution is needed to break through today's shell of oppression. So with that, we are going to get started, and I'm going to have other people talk. So this panel is going to be focusing on how zines have and continue to provide an accessible means of disseminating information. We are looking at that through lens of how they impact political movements and resistance, both historically and in ongoing movements. So I'm just going to start by throwing out there for whoever wants to go first. In your personal experience, how have zines influenced resistant movements in Chicago, Milwaukee, or maybe wherever else you may have experience?
I would say from personal experience of going to like Zine Fests and like other zine related events, it's very much a community where people have they're selling events, but they don't quite feel like selling events oftentimes, which I think is pretty important to like when you think about resistance and community, because oftentimes when you think about selling events, it's more like of a competitive space, more of a like space where you're looking to gain some type of like financially. And of course, we're all looking to sell zines, but I feel like a big part of zine culture is I can go to a zine fair and know I'm going to leave with a good amount of stuff. And also on top of that, just like that free sharing of like information and the value that we find in it. The zine community is very big on sharing whatever they have and like whatever resources they have, which I think is a really big part of resistance because right now, like college is thousands of dollars. Literally anything that has to do with thousands of dollars. I'm already a teacher and it's going to cost me thousands of dollars just so I can get a piece of paper that says she's qualified to teach. And I feel like that like openness and willingness to just freely give what you have is a really big part of zine culture, which is like an act of resistance in itself.
Hi y'all. So yeah, at Midwest Books to Prisoners, zines are certainly a very integral tool for resistance. Number one, being in prison is like kind of like a black hole in which the prison authorities are constantly trying to bury the truth about what is happening, bury these people behind bars and walls. And so zines produced by prisoners is often one of the few ways that people can directly hear from people behind bars and the truth spoken from their direct experiences. And at the same time, at Books to Prisoners, we send books to people. We also quite a bit send zines, and zines have been like extremely important in also sharing what is happening in the world with folks behind bars. And so zines also talking from prisoners to other prisons in other parts of the country has been like a useful tool to facilitate shared experiences and strategies for fighting back. For example, like word about a strike happening in one part of the country with word is heard through zines, which is kind of like an underground conduit of communication. Through the grapevine, so to speak, you can hear about strikes and repression. And so we think that zines are certainly a tool to help ultimately abolish the prison system, but also give voice and amplify those who have been otherwise silenced and buried by the society.
I think as a communication designer, one of my goals is to make knowledge more accessible. And I think that that's exactly what zines do. And that's what they've served as for such a long time. And I think that, resistance is made in like small increments. And so having these tools where we can just share like one topic is really important. And then when we come together at the zine fairs or just any type of sharing event, you have just so many different topics, and it really addresses how broad people are and how many different interests they have. So I think that that's why zines are so important, because you can walk into a room and not really know what to expect and what you're going to leave with. And you're going to leave with something you didn't know about or something you wanted to learn more about.
Yeah, I completely agree with you all. I think that some like specific examples of some scenes I can think of that have influenced some different movements locally or in the Midwest in general as well are well, Moody made a free handout zine that was a guide to grassroots resources in Milwaukee. Specifically, a lot of them, were for BIPOC communities, trans, non-binary communities, and kind of teaching about like different mutual aids that were available. These underground movements that, they're not a big nonprofit funded. We're funding them together with our neighbors and our friends to support people, which is definitely a form of resistance. There's also a really amazing organization called Knox Library out of Detroit who fully just copy. They make really simple zines that are a lot of the time already existing pieces of literature like the Communist Manifesto or words from Masada, or just like literally teaching what is classism or what is property or those sorts of things. And they just like Xerox them and make them, pass them out all for free. So I think that in today, it's free information, and we see a lot of books for free in a lot of different places too, which is great. But being able to actually make them yourself, if there's something you don't find in a book, is really great, and more digestible as well. In my experience, even when I've like been not really wanting to read because I'm like, oh, big book, a zine is really easy for me to just like dive into, regardless of what the information is. And we've done a lot of work at Moody with historical movements of zines and kind of talking about how they have influenced different movements throughout history, not just like currently. So Noah has actually done a lot of the research, and he's designed all of these mini zines that we print out and give out for free at Zine Fest or wherever we are. And that's how I got into zines, was Riot Girl, starting a movement of resistance of femmes in spaces feeling unsafe and trying to teach each other like, hey, let's band together, let's be safe, let's go in these spaces, let's learn about feminism and that sort of thing. So definitely a subject that we've done a lot of work on. I'm going to move on to another question that's, similarly tied. I'm wondering if anybody has their own stories or examples of how your zine making practice facilitates your own resistance. I think, Jeremy in particular, this might be really cool for thinking about incarcerated folks. And yeah, whatever you guys want to contribute, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, sure. So when I was in prison, like I was very much trying to still be a part of the movement that I had been fighting in the streets against the war, and so being in prison is kind of an eye-opening experience for me. So, but I was able to write some articles and send it clandestinely through the networks, and the people were able to publish this, and then that zine was then published throughout other prisons and so forth. And then when I was released, I joined up with Midwest Bookstore prisoners and stuff like that. And as far as like practically speaking, how it's been a useful tool, Midwest Books, we publish a community zine as well, and it's mostly submissions from other incarcerated folks across the country, but it also we do a lot of anti-censorship work because we think that like we hear about stuff when people write us, and so what we're hearing is useful for us to help fight this wave of censorship and book banning. Kind of what's happening in the world right now with the rise of fascism and going after like queer authors and libraries. There's the same type of thing that's happening behind bars. And so like the past couple of years, there's been kind of like a campaign against prison censorship to try to fight back against the mail scanning and so forth. And so we did like surveys, and we published a zine based off survey results, and we published it in our zine as well. And we are learning so much about the nature of censorship, what the prison systems are doing. And it's hard to believe, people don't even understand, but now everything's being reduced to like like nickel and diming, like scanning services and so forth. And so for me personally, it's been like useful to be main a part of the process, part of the social movements, and so other folks like otherwise would be buried. If it weren't for zine distros such as the Southside Chicago Anarchist Black Cross, which has been around for like 20 years, publishing prisoner writings and so forth. Many people are now released and have their zines have been made into books and so forth. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any examples or stories about personal examples with how your zine making helps facilitate your own resistance?
Yeah, so I usually go and teach zine classes often, or I'm sorry, I had an answer and then I blanked for a second. Um, I typically go teach zine classes a lot, and the places I choose are usually pretty like either I'm getting paid to do it or I choose specific places that are kind of important to me. So, like, for example, recently a school asked me if I would come that I wanted to do for free, that was asking if I can come teach zines to, I don't know what school this is, but they're like students that are like have either been through the prison system or like have had some type of hardship where they are only allowed to be at this one school. Um, and to me, that's important for me to go do because I feel like art is such a like conduit for just releasing things that you might know is pent up or like just things you don't really want to speak about. And I feel like zines have been, even if they are usually supposed to be made to distribute information, I feel like they are also just a form of art therapy in general because you can really make a zine about anything. And oftentimes with my students, I really never give them prompts. I never tell them what to make their zine about. I just kind of give them like a zine is a mini book and you make it with kind of whatever you want. Like the way I make zines is pretty handmade, pretty tactile. Like it has nothing to do with printing and redistributing them like through printing. It has a lot to do with like hand making them and either giving them away or selling them really cheap. So I try to keep it as like accessible as possible. And I feel like a lot of my ways of resistance is teaching students how to make this like free resource and teaching them how to kind of find some type of emotional release through zines, especially groups where it feels like this group of students, yes, they have this school, but like in all honesty, most of the time, like the system is pretty much given up on them. That's why they put them in these buildings or something like that. Or like they're at a school where they really don't have freedom or like any resources to really like take care of them. Like I've worked at a few schools that don't have counselors, etc. So the art room is kind of the counseling that they get. So for me, that resistance is a lot to do around like a free space to kind of have something to cater to your mental health, even if you don't know how to. Even my thesis was about that. My thesis was about like a pocket-sized book therapy book basically for Black and brown people, and the whole point of that was that we directed how we took care of our mental health, instead of like it being like this is what the doctor says, because we have a lot of uncomfortability around like hospitals and doctors for very obvious reasons. um well, in my opinion, obvious, probably not that obvious to some people, but yeah, there's just been a lot of discrimination in the medical system. So like zines were my form of resistance of being like, yeah, this has been really rough on us. So how about I can make like something using these, I was able to make something like pretty much free or like more affordable than going somewhere that you're uncomfortable and things like that. So I just see them as a space where you can really create what you want and what you need exactly for whatever demographic that it might cater to, which is really powerful in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I like those examples you gave. I had pulled some different like favorite zines just if they came up in the conversation, and one of the people who I always kind of bring up is Ashley Hartman Annis, who is from Madison, and she does these like sex education inclusive different zines. She is medical doula. I apologize to Ashley if I'm getting her title wrong. I can't remember exactly what she goes by. But like, yeah, like things like withdrawal, like, you know, taboo subjects that people we don't know. And I've learned from this, we don't have much research about anyway. But like just the education you don't get a lot in like schools and whatnot. or even sometimes from medical professionals, like you said. So yeah, I think that's a great example. Something that has come up. Oh, no, please go.
I think you pulled that out, and her zine is also in the thing that I pulled, which was the bread bags. If you remember these, oh
Yeah, those are awesome.
sorry, I'm gonna turn the bar off. I don't know how to turn it off. I wish I could show you, but the bread bags are super cool, which was just a resource where people showed like it was during the time where Roe v. Wade. Oh, there it is. Roe v. Wade got overturned, and like there was just a group of people that came together and just made reproductive rights resources, which I thought was really amazing. So I put that in my collection to show today too.
Yeah, I love that. And that's kind of leads into something interesting to discuss too, which is thinking about those were all free, right? So we've mentioned a lot of free things. We've mentioned like Zine Fest. A lot of the time you don't have to worry about buying things, trades, free resources. So do we like what are your thoughts on if giving away zines for free is crucial to this like act of facilitating resistance? Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes we have to fund it. Sometimes people are trying to make money off of it, and maybe that's just a different type of zine altogether. But yeah, let's just start with maybe that part of the question.
My thoughts on zines being provided for free is it contains the word free in itself. Freedom is the aspiration of what so many people have within us, so many of us have within us, if not everyone. So the idea of free zines, free literature, and especially in a circumstance where people only paid less than $1 for hourly wages is invaluable in the reception of knowledge among people who could use that knowledge in a radical way. Having zines printed through PDF, which is something that is extremely remarkable that the compas at Midwest Books of Prisoners are doing, is revolutionary in itself. There's people who request zines from various topics, books from various authors who are connecting them with their own self-help, and the ability to recognize free literature distros such as those provided by the aforementioned distributors and compas collectives are trend-setting. They're trend-setting in a way that is perhaps one of the most revolutionary developments in the history of underground literature and literature itself.
I would say personally, I sometimes think anything made by a smaller creator that isn't a big corporation in itself is resistance, because that is someone fully providing for themselves and like kind of not merging into a wider system in order to like survive. But also, I would say a lot of people that make zines usually typically like have some type of use for the funding. Like my zine fully funded, like during the pandemic, I sent a lot of care packages out. And the only reason I was able to do that is from like selling my zines for a good price. Um, if people are on like the braided Instagram and they have like a GoFundMe or something, and I've had a good sales week, sometimes I would just donate a little bit just because like it was just braided was more of a thing where I was like, I just need the money to print them and like ship them. And the rest of the money could either be pocket money, but I'm a teacher, so it doesn't really matter that much. So I'm either going to use it towards like my classroom or something else. Um, but regardless, I kind of feel like selling zines versus giving them out free really just kind of depends on like the morals you have behind it, in my opinion.
For anybody too thinking about like I think LaDeja brought up a lot of good points about if we're self-funding, if they're going towards something or whatever. For people who are maybe trying to use zines as resistance, get information out that's like important, going to teach people, or really whatever, just starting to disseminate zines of any sort. Does anybody have strategies for how to keep the production costs low, like finding initial income to print, enabling, this sort of act of zines as resistance, or likewise?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good question because I work at a printer, so I kind of know the value of this type of stuff. The printing industry, according to capitalist norms, is going down, and so everything is going. Prices are going up with paper and so forth. So I mean, for us, of course, the folks who are writing us are requesting reading materials. Obviously, don't have much. You might make $5 a month, working in the kitchen. And so yeah, we send everything to everybody for free, obviously. And even when we're like tabling at events and so forth like that, we do think that it's kind of like more of a value to get the information out there. People, what I'm saying, like when we're tabling, give that stuff out there. You know what I mean? But yeah, certainly like we are also these days, Midwest Books is like an official organization, 501c3. So the whole scamming copy shops and be stealing from your school and stuff like that is like maybe when you're younger and stuff like that. But so yeah, strategies for keeping the cost down. Well, we always buy cheap ink like from overseas and like trying to like refill the toner carts and stuff like that. We're like cheap bastards, right? Still maybe even looking at the schools, but yeah, so it is kind of important that we do distribute the information freely as possible, especially with like the book bans and stuff like that. Now, like we could actually send zines to people inside where that prison won't allow books in anymore. But see, I just refill your toner cartridges. Don't buy them new.
I was going to say a big thing it would be like printing one page zines that are just black and white. Is a big one. I know we love color. Maybe you can make it a color it in zine or something and let people have fun with it. But like black and white printing is usually like 19 cents. If you make it one page and like you can print a lot of them and give a lot of them out. Also there are so many like grants for printing, getting your zines printed and distributed. Like Brown Recluse is a distro where during the pandemic I was able to get my zines printed and distributed through them completely free. Um, they just did it again a second time where they just opened up submissions for that. Um, and I know they're not the only group that does it, but I know that was one I benefited from. So it's the first one that comes off mind. But if you look up like grants for zines, sometimes you'll find them. Um, and because zines can be kind of like more on a niche side, honestly, most of the time you can kind of get through with some of them. I'm not gonna lead people into thinking it's that easy because it's not. But like there's resources and like places like the Bindery have 15% off for like BIPOC communities, and like definitely looking at more local print shops, especially if you have something for like a good cause. I've noticed they've been like good with like giving you good prices and things like that. So like with Braided, I've been able to like be like, this is what it's for. This is where I'm bringing it. Is there a way I can like get a little help here? And I definitely would very much always suggest printing more local because first of all, they probably need the like money, but also because they're local, and if you're especially doing a local cause, they'll probably help in some type of way. So yeah.
Yeah, all of our free zines are also just one page, black and white. And I think a lot of the informational zines I run into that have manifestos or essays or information are always that too, because, right, for something like that, the purpose is the information. You don't need something fancy. We've toyed around with the idea of, okay, we'll make these like free black and white versions, but people, if they are really into also the artistic part of it, which of course we have a lot of those offerings, a lot of zine makers make those as well. Could we make a cool Rizzo like colored version of it too? And they would have to pay for some of that. So I do think there are options. And also wondering about anyone's opinions on how you disseminate your zines, especially if they're made as a tool for resistance. So for sure, price, if they're free or not, would be a big part of that. But Jeremy touched on like interesting aspects of censorship in prisons, but kind of like anywhere. I think that's something even us, like we struggle with like, where do can we just drop these off at places? Like, how are you actually getting, you made it, okay, you got the funding, but like now they have to go to people. And a lot of the people maybe who need that information, they're not going to just like be at a zine fest or something, right? So yeah, what are like the ideas or strategies you have?
I personally reach out to places specifically that I want to put zines, or I just like, there's a lot of distros and places like that. Those places usually are just for like sell zines, etc. I have a few lists of them, but if you look up zine distros, they usually come up. But when it comes to like specific places I look into, I always have a pitch for why my zine needs to be there. And I will specifically just send it to them. And most of the time, if it's like a free information thing, most people don't really say no. And I find that really important, especially to like kind of curate the demographic of which I'm sending things out, because like as someone from an underprivileged area, a lot of resources don't reach certain areas, no matter how much we say we're like distributing to a community. A lot of communities get looked over because like people don't want to go there, or people haven't gone that far out into the city. Like even my neighborhood that I work in right now, there's like no resources over there, or at least people would think there's absolutely zero resources over there. But like, and no one is like ever reaching out to them to kind of offer them resources, if I'm being honest. Um, and so it was really like important to me also to work in a neighborhood like that. So it took a lot of like my own personal research and me reaching out and being like, this is what I want. And then finding places in that area and being like, hey, I'm noticing a lack of this. And I really think you could benefit if I send you this. So yeah, just like really reaching out to places. A lot of places respond. I'm real big on like just saying something. And if they don't, then that's just how it is. But if they do, that's great.
It's actually a great question. Especially like thinking about how to like get beyond kind of like the insular nature of like our zine communities and stuff like that. Getting in bookstores and libraries and conferences and stuff like that, cool and all right. But I kind of think that like we really want to up the ante here and make zines a threat again. We gotta get out the libraries and into the streets. So one thing I really liked like doing is actually taking a zine table, one of those fold zine tables, and like maybe a little banner and just like literally going to the protest or literally going to the encampment or tabling at a punk show or like a rave or something like that, where we're going to find people who are often very much into these ideas and stuff like that, but maybe not gonna like go out of their way to like go to a library or something like that, or to find from a zine archive. But so yeah, one interesting phenomenon that has happened this past year is the encampments at college campuses for Palestine. And so we've tabled at like all of them here in the city. We've had tables, and it's kind of interesting because like it's one of those phenomenons that you will hear about like other encampments in other parts of the country. They're doing the same thing. They'll take a picture of their zine table. It's like, damn, that's one zine, that's one zine, one zine. And I think it was a very exciting time for zines generally, because like the current content, the updates and the critiques are being made in real time. Like we would just set the table up, and then like some folks would just come and they'd be like, yeah, we just came back from the Urbana-Champaign encampment. We brought a stack of zines from there. And it's like, damn, that's like a critique that just got posted last night. Now it's in the zine form. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's like one, like going out of your way and having these interventions to distribute the content where the action is at, I think is very useful.
Noah, do you have any experience with like how students at MyAd are distributing zines or like sharing them, besides, I know they do like zine, like artist sales, and they have a zine fest, but just like outside of that and the day-to-day?
Yeah, we have a equity and inclusion room at our school, and we have a zine library in there that LaDeja actually helped set up. So that's a way that like people can just go in there and drop off the zines that they've made recently, and then they're all free. And you can come in and take them. You can return them. You can put in your own. So it's just a good way to like continue the circulation of zines within the community. And yeah, like we never run out because people are always making them. There's a zine club at our school, so they're always making some. And then yeah, I think it's like it's always updated. It's always new people putting stuff in and taking it. So like along with the library that's in there, there's the zine library. So it's just like a multitude of resources within that one room.
Yeah, I like what you said, Jeremy, a lot about just having to go to these different places, because as you think about zine history, and like for Moody and the zines Noah researched and made for these kind of segments of zine history, they were all sort of resistance movements, and during all of those movements they weren't having zine fests and stuff. Like, libraries were not even made yet, or maybe not as accessible yet in some areas. We talked about all the way starting from like witchcraft pamphlets spreading healing remedies to Riot Girl, like I mentioned, the punk movement, Harlem Renaissance, little magazines. So there were a lot of ways that was happening before. So kind of going back to the roots of it is really interesting. In terms of, I don't know if this is maybe relevant to all of us, but thinking about like when you've brought out zines, do you think it's difficult to get audience to engage in like political zines, in particular zines that are focused on very outright resistance versus an art zine that, we can think this is resistance, this is like our personal stories and whatnot, but it's maybe not as upfront about it? Or have you noticed anything with how people engage with different topics in different publications?
I would actually say yes, especially in recent days. It's been a big struggle for me. Like, I've stopped doing a lot of events, honestly, because I feel like oftentimes the way people interact with especially BIPOC specific scenes is like a little bit performative in some ways. They'll stop and be like, "Oh, that's so cool," but like never really be like, "Why is it cool?" Not really actually engaging with the topic, not really actually caring about the topic, but feeling the need to be like, "Oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh, what's your Instagram?" And I'm like, "Okay, what is so cool and why do you want my Instagram?" Like I don't really, when it comes to sharing my zines, I know my zines cost money specifically because they go towards something, but at the same time, I really oftentimes appreciate like a conversation about them. Like oftentimes when people come to look at my zines, I'll be like, "Oh, feel free to look through them," but they'll look at the cover and then like find out what it's about and be like, "Oh, this is so cool," and then just like put it down, walk away, things like that. So I would say most of the time people don't really want to like engage much if they find out it's not something that's like, I almost want to say benefiting them, or something that's like, actually, I do want to say benefiting them in some type of way. They're just like, "Oh, that's cool," because they know they probably need to say something in order to move on. Um, and I find that quite annoying. So I've noticed that for a few like different zine things, like even at zine events, like I'll be like, "This is what this is about," and they'll move on and then buy something that's like 10 faces my cat's made in a week. And I'm like, I think that's cute. Don't get me wrong. I literally just bought a zine that's like completely about like how pretty rain is. And that is fine. But also like I at least care to look through zines that I might not buy, but have some type of political meaning to it, especially if I'm at an event that is all about like resisting, like Madison Print and Resist Fest, like in the title is Print and Resist. And oftentimes people were coming there and not really like caring to stop anything that had to do with resistance. So yeah, that could be just me being a little bit like about it, but also is something I notice like a lot.
I will say this is from the frame of usually like markets, like places intending to sell, and people coming to buy things, but I am always shocked by what settings my zines like sell in or people are interested in. Sometimes a zine fest, it's so niche and has become such a, I feel like in a lot of ways, we're thinking about the art of it, which is amazing and of course a good part of it, but not so much the information and the way it kind of began. These like cheap information disseminated in random places to people for free, like we're talking about. So sometimes in those settings, people really particular want like the most beautiful, like artistic, refined things. Versus I've been in places where most people don't know about zines, and even if they don't buy them, like so many people will stop and are really interested and to talk about it and just like think it's really cool to learn about it. So I think it does go back to that distribution question more, and thinking about how can we really widen that scope and think about the purpose of what we're making and what settings it's really important. And again, if it can't always be free, that's understandable with what resources and whatnot you have and what the intention is. But when it can be free, like where is it going to do the most good to be free and to be like given to people for sure. We don't have a lot of time left, so I would love if anybody has anything like in particular with these questions to add. You know, feel free to talk about that. But I did want to end with sharing like a zine or two if you guys have some around. So we'll start with if there's anything in particular like with the topics we've talked about. I know we, you know, like Jeremy and with our incarcerated guests asynchronously, we're going to touch on specifically like prisons and Palestine. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, since I know I didn't ask any like particular questions about that. Feel free to do that. But yeah, anything anybody wants to add related to any of our topics, please feel free.
Yeah, I guess we'll. So yeah, generally I just have a couple zines. I'm sitting around, of course, right? Like, but I guess people are definitely eating up the political stuff, the police, prison stuff, and jail are constantly asking about that. But oftentimes we have a library and we're trying to respond to what people are asking for. What we end up having to do is to make a zine literally on the spot. You might go to Google and be like file type PDF and bookletify or something like that. But because people are often asking specific topics that we don't have books for, such as gardening or like art or a lot of how-to stuff. And so just like real quickly, one of the projects that we do, actually, we have like an internet subscription system to where I wrote like some code that actually retrieves content from Twitter, Instagram, and like all the social medias, but also RSS and the internet. And it kind of designs and makes a PDF on the fly. And so like we send this out to people, and it's like kind of cool because people actually do like reading tweets and stuff like that. And so it's a way of getting current content to people who don't otherwise have access to the internet, which is a damn shame in of itself. But I will say, like, oftentimes maybe like the question about like what type of zines and stuff like that. I personally like autobiographies of people who had been through struggle. And so this is like one zine that I enjoyed. She's a legend in the game. Leela, she, was involved in the Palestine resistance and like I believe hijacked some planes, did a lot of prison time. And so like hearing those stories kind of like resonates, like, I mean, especially folks who are in similar situations do like reading stories about other people who are in prison or who have fought back. Other stuff, this is a really good one, who unfortunately he was murdered by Israel. He's a journalist in Palestine. But this particular one talks about like prisons and stuff like that in so-called Israel and the torturous psychological techniques that they're using there. So a lot of people are really into that type of content. And then one more that I really like, this is very popular in the encampment. This is kind of more like practical tips, not so much like theory and like all that, but more like what riot control equipment do you expect the police to have? And those type of like more technical topics, I think maybe be more appealing to folks who are at a student that probably get lectured all day by professors who got all the theories in the world. You know what I mean? It's time for action,
These have been extremely resourceful in the resistance struggle that I'm a part of. They've been instrumental in organizing and the projects in the ghetto of South Chicago, as well as behind bars in the county jail and state prison, as well as a state mental institution, which I was sent to after my being visited by the parole board a few years ago, where when asked upon making parole if I would be willing to see outpatient psych as a precondition for making parole, I replied, sure, I don't mind as per parole. However, know that there's people confined in solitary confinement right now whose request to be seen by the institutional site are denied and who are ignored and who would appreciate the ability to see outpatient site of their preference as well. Immediately following that, instead of going to the halfway house I was scheduled to go to, I was sent within 4 days or so to a state mental institution. The zine Genocide Waged Against the Black Nation, a scientific form of genocide by Mutulu Shakur, resonates with me in a particular way. While I'm not a nationalist, I'm an anarchist. Different things that he wrote and they're applied to my life directly. For example, the counterinsurgency measures that he refers to, counterinsurgency tactics, it is written, are the political and military actions undertaken to forestall the inevitable fire of resistance before it is strikingly manifested. Of course, the use of such tactics demonstrates a clear recognition on the part of those governing the state that unjust conditions exist and will continue to exist in the foreseeable future. Additionally, once resistance has been manifested, counterinsurgency tactics are used to effectively destroy it. There's other passages in that zine as well. A zine where, by the way, is inside of a DIY doula self-care for before and after your abortion by the Doula Project is inside of, and it says that persons who resisted the oppressive measures perpetrated by prison officials or those persons who complained of oppressive conditions or those persons who were labeled incorrigible were arbitrarily confined to mental wards inside the prison, were transferred to mental institutions for the criminally insane. So that's one zine that's had a particular impact on me and the spreading of understanding behind enemy lines. Lorenzo Cambora Irvin's Anarchism in the Black Revolution has been extremely resourceful in the housing projects in Parkway Gardens, aka O Block, where we have a base and serve the people.
I can kind of break us up and I can go to share some of them. So I just pulled some random ones. It's always really hard for me to choose. But I think that I really like zines that are just like basic information, like, in our thinking about zine history, we often include some things like pamphlets, things that aren't really labeled as a zine, but for all intents and purposes they are. So anytime I go somewhere and they randomly like have a zine, I didn't expect it to like share information about what they're doing or whatever, it's really interesting to me. So there's a space called the Waste Shed in Chicago, which has a bunch of just like donated art supplies and school supplies. I believe they give everything for free to teachers if they want to drop in, but then otherwise it's just like super discounted because it's donated, like gently used and whatnot. But I love just like the idea of having information and like putting it in this like little easy format of the actual zine. And then, am I freezing up on you guys? I can't really see faces, so I'm hoping you can hear me.
Oh,
okay. Okay, thank you. I really love like something that was at the Milwaukee Zine Fest was from Midwest Queer and Trans, who they're having their own Zine Fest coming up in October as well. But they have like a guide for the Twin Cities and like queer friendly spaces of all sorts. So kind of like in the same thread of Jeremy, what you said, just like simple like information that you can use like here and now, like not just I think it's important to of course spread academic writings and things in books that maybe people don't have access to or being censored, but also just like quick, important tips and things like that that you can use. And then besides that, something that is a little bit more academic, but that I really love, who I'm sure will be at Chicago Zine Fest, is temporary services and like printed matter. They're all kind of go together, but they do a lot of writings about like publishers, about like the artist book and like the problems of publishing and disseminating information, waste and how to not be wasteful when making zines and books and things like that. So those are a few favorites. I'll stop now because I could talk about a lot of them, but just a lot of information that, you know, it's the kind of stuff maybe you would find here and there on the internet, like, and be like, whoa, this is a cool hole I stumbled into. But having like this physical copy and like knowing the time that went into it and kind of that different format and dissemination is really nice.
What kind of zines do you read that you feel embody resistance? Poetry, political zines, art zines, autobiographical zines? What are your favorite zines or types of zines, and why?
All of those, all of the above embody resistance. I love reading zines with pictures in them, zines that don't have pictures in them, but give an idea that's worth more than 1,000 pictures. There's a few of my favorite zines. A few of my favorite zines are, I would say, the Each One Teach One, which has Anthony Racin interviewing Sean Swain and Sean Swain interviewing Anthony Racin. Anarchism in the Black Revolution is one of my favorites by Lorenzo Camboa Irvin. There's so many. The zine I just mentioned, the zine by the Doula Project, is remarkable. You know, it has, you know, the collective in New York who came out with it were phenomenal in the way that they added crossword puzzles and knowledge, and from a street point of view, in street words, in a way that's healthy, and in a way that is just, they're just page turners, and they're you know, it's extremely liberating to read, just to look at alone, let alone to read and gain understandings from. Let me see, Alexander Berkman's ABC of Anarchism, that's one of my favorites. That's a classic of mine. Let me see, there's so many, but those, and my absolute favorite, I'd probably say, is Emma Goldman's The Psychology of Political Violence. Oh my goodness gracious. That right there, that's where she describes the atmosphere in an individual who commits an act of political violence, who she calls an attentater. Attenter, if I'm not mistaken, is how it's spelled. And she relates it to the brewing of a storm, manifesting in lightning. And I used to sleep with that zine under my pillow. I slept with it underneath my pillow probably for about 2 years straight when I was in another institution. That's one of my favorite zines. Okay.
I did pull a few zines myself. Sorry, I'm a little blank. I pulled 2 zines that I got when I was in Chicago, actually, at the MCA. They have this thing called Teen Creative Agency. I was in it at one point. It's just like when teens come together into the museum and kind of just get to create art together. And they always have a zine fest where they give away free zines. And this year they did some more cultural-based zines. And one was on corn and culture, and one was on like just watermelons and culture. And these are given out completely free through the museum. And I just really thought they were cool resources just that a group of students got to make, which I thought was pretty cool. Also pulled this one called Rain because I really like to perpetuate that zines can be about literally anything. And I think this one's just really pretty. And it's just about rain. And that's all that it's about. I love the colors. I love everything about it. And then I also pulled this one by Alyssa Cuffey, which is all affirmations. And I like this one because I kind of keep it next to my bedside table. And it's just a really pretty and gentle way to like kind of give myself affirmations in the morning. I didn't pull many about, oh, I did pull this one as well. It's from the Milwaukee Literature Supply. They have a table typically where it's literally just a bunch of free zines. And this one is just about 2 essays on stealing and why it's okay. And it came out around the time of like the rise of George Floyd. And I thought it was pretty cool that they gave this out for free because a lot of times people are like, you're stealing, that's a bad thing. And I was like, here's some reason why it's not. Which I thought was pretty cool. And then I pulled more fun zines. I'm really big on fun zines. I do have informational zines, but to be honest, I read them once and they're kind of just in my collection for like teaching purposes. But the ones I look at the most are the fun ones because they're kind of just like a cooler way to look at stuff I might look at on Instagram, I guess you would say. And sometimes I get tired of my phone. I just want something to like leaf through. So this is a collection of drawings I got for like $3 at Madison Print and Resist Fest. This artist is in Spanish, so I don't know how to say it, but that is all of their information. And then this zine, which I thought was cool, which is this like pocket zine. And you open it and they're like monsters in a cave. You pull it up, and you're like, yeah, they're just walking through the cave. Woohoo, walking through the cave. Oh my gosh, what's going on in this cave? Oh my God, he's gonna eat them. And then you open it, and it's also like them walking in a cave, and it's the whole monster. Um, and I feel like it's just the art teacher in me that likes really like just like very creative things. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I need that, but I do. So this was one of those for me. And it was like $3 as well. And it's by Sean Dempsey. That's called Troll Hunt. And there's no words, no nothing, just a pretty picture. And so yeah, those are all the zines I had. The rest of mine are at work because they're doing zines in like a week after we do polka dot week.
Do you have any, Noah? I know you only kind of have some moody zines, but I don't know if there's a favorite one you designed.
Yeah, I don't have any with me currently. I have one. This is by a friend, Mara House. And it's I really like her zines because she makes them about science. So I just think it's like a cool mix of art and science. And this one is it's a collection of poems. Oh, you can't read it. But it's by they're poems by man and voice. And they're just a really cool collection of photographs along with some of the poems. And I just think it's a really good visualization of how like poetry and science can be combined into one thing. Yeah, so that's the only one I have with me right now.
Braided is inactive right now, and we'll probably stay that way for a minute, if I'm being completely honest. I'm a little drained at the moment. So you can find me at LaDeja Bryant Arts. I'm still making zines, I'm still teaching zines, just not really under braided at the moment. And yeah, so LaDeja Bryant Arts for me.
Sure, real quick. Yeah, MidwestBooksToPrisoners.org. You catch us on Instagram as well. Yeah, we still meet every week, answering letters from folks behind bars and sending reading materials in, and our printers are humming all day. So yeah, come on, come through.
So we are Moody or Moody the Zine. Noah is our lovely design intern, helping out with social media and everything. We are sort of in a lull this year, doing less issues. But we did just have a poetry issue come out, and hopefully we'll have something new from Noah pretty soon here, and we'll be at Chicago Zine Fest for the first time. So we're really excited about that. And hopefully we'll have some news and kind of some changes in our formatting soon. But yeah, just Moody the Zine on Instagram or moodythezine.com. I don't know if you had anything to add, Noah, but you can definitely plug yourself if you want.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Noah Palatig. And yeah, I work with Moody, and that's been a great experience and really my like introduction to zines. So hopefully I get to stay in this arena of zines for a while.
You got about 2 minutes left, but this last one, if you wanted to plug any of your projects or anything new you're working on, I wanted to ask, like, as a zine creator yourself, like, what does it mean to be where you're at, to be able to publish zines and reach people, or if you wanted to promote any of your new projects? 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to present some of my work. I consider it artwork because the Compass at South Chicago ABC and Midwest Books of Prisoners, that all, you know, it's a collective effort. You know, some of the most recent works that I've had the pleasure of working with those distros with are the Anarchabalion, which was published, was it last year or a year and a half ago? The Anarchabalion is a work where I combine anarchism with ancient Egyptian Kemetic knowledge. My newest book that's scheduled to be published is The Ghetto Bred Anarchist, which Nero Inc., Nero, is publishing and published the Anarchabalion as well. And yep, so those are a couple. Also, Jeremy is also a great writer. If anyone gets a chance, if you check out Jeremy's writing, is very powerful, and the way he paints pictures is extraordinary. As well as Anthony. Anthony's a great writer too. I know we only have about a minute left, but Anthony Racing is the one who introduced me to all this great stuff and to anarchism, and I'm extremely grateful. And also, I enjoyed reading everyone's part on my tablet while on the bunk too. Melissa and everybody, y'all are great. Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you all panelists for taking time to do this and chat and share your expertise. And thank you to all the viewers, to everybody, supporting zines and our zines or any zines in any way, and hopefully coming to Chicago Zine Fest if you're able to, or if not, just joining us in this way. So yeah, hope to see you there or talk to you online or read your zine sometime.